Have you ever seen the cartoon where a man is digging through a tunnel and is only inches away from a diamond mine, but turns around and gives up? The caption says, "The moment you're ready to quit is usually the moment right before a miracle happens. Don't give up." Today I'm sharing a personal story of how I almost gave up on a dream I felt God giving me and how He rescued me from my fear. But before we get started, I want you to know that this October I'm hosting the Flourish Retreat, a Thursday through Sunday gathering in a luxury home on Kiowa Island, right outside of Charleston, South Carolina. It's an intimate retreat for just 10 women who want to build their faith, strengthen their families, rediscover their purpose, and feel deeply loved and cared for. This isn't a conference. This isn't a big event. This is a sanctuary, a place to breathe again, a place to remember who you are, a place to let God pour into the dry places of your life. If you want to be among the first to receive all the details, just tap the Flourish Retreat waitlist link in the show notes. This could be the courageous yes that opens the door to the purpose, connection, and renewal you've been longing for. Welcome to Building Strong Homes, the podcast where faith meets family in the most practical and powerful ways. I'm your host, Carol Roper, wife, mom, and former home designer who used to spend my days drafting floor plans and designing details, but now I help wives and moms design lives based on God's Word. This podcast is for women who want more than just survival mode. You want clarity. You want purpose. You want a home that stands strong, not just physically, but spiritually. If you've ever wondered how your ordinary days could build something extraordinary, you're in the right place. Discover biblical blueprints for shaping a legacy that reflects God's design, one brick of faith at a time. Now, let's talk about stepping out of our comfort zones, because comfort kills calling. 14 years ago this month, I took a chance on God by going to my first writers' conference 2 hours away from home. The empty nest years were looming, and I was starting to feel like my purpose was being stripped away. Leading up to that conference, I'd been asking God where He wanted me to spend my extra time and felt like He said to start writing. My friend Mandy confirmed that idea over lunch a few weeks later without my prompting her. As I was sharing the grief of my kids leaving home and wondering aloud what purpose I'd have, she said, "You should write a book. You've got so much experience raising kids and doing women's ministry. I know people will want to hear what you have to say." Now, I was hesitant since I'd been threatened by my college English professor that I'd fail her class if I didn't learn how to write more succinctly. Those words still echoed in my head. "I have no idea where to start," I said. "The only thing I'm good at is drawing house plans. How do I even begin?" Thankfully, she remembered a lady who'd spoken at our church, Vonda Skelton, who was a writer. "I think she has a writers group that meets close by. I'll get you her number." And so began my writing journey. Walking into that writers group for the first time and feeling like a fraud was hard, really hard. But the members welcomed me and were gracious not to tear my writing to shreds. Instead, they gave me constructive criticism and guided me in learning how to write. Not long after I joined, everyone started talking about an upcoming writers' conference in Asheville, North Carolina. Their enthusiasm was contagious, and even though I didn't know much about writing, I decided I wanted to learn. So, with fear and trepidation, I signed up and paid my money. The conference was 5 days long, and I was going by myself. This was the first time I'd ever stayed out of town alone and wasn't sure what to expect. Once I arrived at the conference, I navigated the check-in process easily enough. The front desk directed me to my room, and I headed that way. After reaching my room and unpacking my luggage, I looked over the conference schedule. There was an orientation meeting taking place soon, so I decided that would be a good place for me to start. Making my way downstairs to the auditorium, I entered the mostly empty room and found a seat in the middle of a row towards the front. While waiting for the meeting to start, I noticed a lot of the attendees filing in looked familiar. I wasn't sure why, but brushed it off. About 5 minutes before the class was supposed to begin, a lady from my writers group walked in and saw me. "Carol," she shouted from the front of the auditorium, "what are you doing in here? You're not supposed to be in this class. This is for faculty only, and I know you aren't faculty." I was mortified. Somehow I'd gotten the schedule mixed up, and the orientation was earlier that afternoon in the same room. By now, the seats had almost filled up completely all around me, and I had to somehow climb over a very large man at the end of the row. He didn't volunteer to stand up, so making my way from my seat to the door became a spectacle. I felt like all eyes were on me, thinking I must be some kind of idiot to believe I belonged in the same room as them. Fighting back tears, I rushed out of the auditorium and into the elevator. Once I finally got to my room, I couldn't hold back any longer, sobbing from my embarrassment and fear, wondering, what was I doing there? I wasn't a writer. Who was I kidding? After a good cry, I decided I would leave. Even though I'd spent a lot of money on this conference and I wouldn't get any refund, I couldn't bear any more humiliation. But since I'd never been to Ridgecrest before, I decided to walk around and check it out before I headed home. At least I'd have that consolation. I dried my tears and headed back to the elevator with a heavy heart. Once there, the door slid open to reveal a woman I'd met a few times at my writers' group, Celeste. "There you are," she said with such glee I thought she must be talking to someone else. "I remembered you were coming to the conference alone and felt God wanted me to come and find you." Relief washed over me. "Last year was my first time and I was scared to death," she continued. "I'd like to help you find your way around." I couldn't believe God sent her to find me at that exact moment. The whole story of my humiliating experience spilled out while my tears flowed freely, ending with my plan to head home. "Don't do that," she said. "I'll help you get through this conference. I wish I'd had someone to help me last year. I know how you feel. Don't go." So I didn't. I stayed and had one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I learned so much, met all sorts of new people, and made deeper connections with some of those in my writers group. Each class was a lesson in learning how to become a better writer. But what impressed me most was the willingness of the faculty to help. There wasn't any gatekeeping concerning how to become a better writer or experienced writer cliques who snubbed the newbies. Instead, it was an atmosphere of helping each other learn the tools and tricks of the trade while networking with those who were many years ahead of me. The goal of everyone I spoke to was to help advance the gospel. It was a beautiful experience. On the last day of the conference, I was exhausted but not ready to go home yet, so I decided to stay and eat lunch that was provided for those who didn't have to leave early. But Celeste was one of those who did need to leave, so I'd be on my own. Visions of eating in the school cafeteria alone threatened to make me want to leave, but I decided to make myself stay. On my way to lunch, I prayed for God to send me someone to eat with, just so I wouldn't feel so alone. As I walked down the hill, I noticed a beautiful lady who was also alone headed to lunch. She looked so familiar, but I couldn't place her. I knew she wasn't one of the faculty. Maybe I'd seen her in class. When I got closer, one of us struck up a conversation. She introduced herself as LaTan. Immediately, I felt like we were kindred spirits. After going through the buffet line, I asked if she had anyone to sit with. She didn't and accepted my invitation to eat together. We talked through lunch, but neither of us was ready to leave. So we found a couple of rockers on the porch outside and continued our conversation. As we talked, she shared that she was a writer for Woe magazine. Suddenly, I realized why she looked so familiar. I'd recently read an issue with an article written by LaTan. It resonated with me so much that I tore it out and kept it. At the end of the article was a bio with a photo of my new friend. I couldn't believe God answered my prayer of sending me someone to eat lunch with who had inspired me with her words only a few weeks earlier. LaTan and I talked for hours, neither of us ready to head to our homes in opposite directions. Finally, we had to say goodbye, but promised to keep in touch, and we have. Several months later, we shared a room at the Cove where she was the worship leader and I an attendee. We had so much fun, and I respected her even more than I had before. What a beautiful gift God gave me through Celeste and LaTan that week, bookended with a familiar face and getting to know each one on a deeper level. God took such good care of me as I stepped out in faith and obedience to enter this new call on my life. I hate to think what I would have missed if I'd have left. That would have been the end of my writing journey, I'm sure. I would have given up in defeat and never returned to my writers group. Instead, I've been blessed to write a blog that won first place at that same conference several years later. I also had several devotions that won awards there too. I've been published in Guidepost, a magazine I've been reading since I was a teenager, as well as Chicken Soup for the Soul and some online publications. I've also been to many more conferences and made so many more friends. Some of you may have seen my post a few weeks ago where I shared that I got on a plane by myself and flew to Alabama to attend a retreat with some incredible ladies. Y'all, I was terrified. I hate flying, especially by myself. But I knew the reward was worth the risk, so I acted like a grown-up and did it. I even met a wonderful lady on the plane, Jeannie, who I was blessed to share my testimony with, and she shared her hard story with me. We left as friends. Jeannie, if you're listening, I'd love to hear from you. That's the second time in a year I've flown alone. I think it's getting easier. If you told me that first day of the conference that I would have accomplished these things, I'm sure I wouldn't have believed you. Next week, I'll be headed back to that same writers' conference that I first attended, the Blue Ridge Mountains Christian Writers Conference, for the 7th time. This year, my podcast is one of the finalists in the solo episode category for the Selah Awards. I don't know if I'll win, but it is an honor to just be recognized. So why am I sharing all of this with you? Because I want you to know we can't grow if we don't step out of our comfort zones. I was listening to a podcast today that said comfort kills our calling. Ain't that the truth? If you feel God is leading you to something that seems bigger than you can handle, know that you don't have to handle it alone. He will be there every step of the way. I could spend hours sharing how God has faithfully been with me every time I've stretched my faith and said yes. And I've been blessed beyond anything I could have dreamed. Don't miss out on the blessings God wants to give you, friend. He's waiting for you to say yes to the dream He has for your life. And when you do step out in faith, not only will you be blessed, but you'll be a blessing to others as well. That's how things work in God's economy. Don't let fear keep you from fulfilling the call. After all, there might be diamonds on the other side of that fear. And as you seek God's direction, trust that He'll make your next step clear. Whether He leads you to join us in Charleston or into something else entirely, His heart is for you to flourish in this season. And if something about the retreat resonated with you, take a moment to ask God whether this might be part of His plan for your next season. We're praying for the women He nudges to join us, and our desire is to create a space where His love is felt in every detail. Remember, if you'd like to be among the first to receive all the details, just tap the Flourish Retreat waitlist link in the show notes or inside your podcast app. This might be the gentle, brave step that opens a brand new chapter in your faith and purpose. Friend, you are loved, you are seen, and God is not finished writing your story. I can't wait to walk with you as you step into what He has next. If this episode encouraged you, share it with a friend who's standing on the edge of her own calling. Sometimes all we need is someone to say, "You can do this, and God is with you." Let's be that voice for each other. Let's hold each other up. Let's straighten each other's crowns. Until next time, remember, don't give up, especially when God is calling you out of your comfort zone. Don't give in and keep building strong. Your calling might be just the thing someone needs to step into their purpose God has for them. Thanks so much for listening.